Hey my loves, I wanted to talk to you about burnout recovery today and really give you the exact steps that I have taken in the past, I would say particularly 12 months, to completely get off this cycle of burnout that so many of us end up being on. And today I'm gonna give you the lowdown on the juiciest things that I did to really honestly truly help. So what I would say is, if you are struggling with burnout, or if you think you may be on the road to burnout, if you are, for example, struggling with feeling like you're looking at your calendar on a Monday and feeling completely overwhelmed by what you've got coming up, if you find yourself saying yes to things when you actually want to say no, and you're struggling you're putting so much on your plate because your default knee-jerk response is yes, I'll do that, yes, I can come to that, yes. If you are finding that you are feeling tired, but the feeling tired is more than just a one-off where you've had a bad night's sleep, or your kid had you up early, or you've had a week of overtime or night shifts or whatever, there's not something short term that would justify you feeling tired. You go to sleep and then you recover. If you're finding that you are almost constantly feeling quite tired and exhausted, then you could well be either on the road to or experiencing burnout. And for me, how burnout showed up was struggling to almost, depressive symptoms in a way, struggling to feel enthusiastic about the things that normally I'm really passionate about, and actually starting to feel resentful, feeling resentful towards the things that I had on my plate, feeling resentful about the amount of social things that I had in the calendar, or the work that I had scheduled for myself. If you're finding yourself feeling one or more of the above things I've just mentioned, then I want to help you today. I really hope that you can take away some actionable steps to move forward, to make some concrete changes and feel the physical, tangible benefit of that in your life. Before we dive in, I do want to let you know a couple things. Number one, the Sisterhood doors are closing for new members on Monday night, so Monday the 3rd of July. And let me tell you, if you struggle to put yourself first, if you might be struggling with burnout, or overworking, or overcommitting to things, or not making enough time for your self-care, your well-being, you belong inside of this membership, because it's going to give you so much tangible, actionable and supportive advice to help you begin to put yourself first and to prioritize yourself and your goals, because there are unfortunately so many women within my community, I'm sure women you know as well, that don't do that and that put other people's needs above their own still, So the doors close on Monday night, and July also marks the beginning of our 8-week summer challenge. And one of the aspects of the summer challenge that you can choose is calm and relaxed. So you basically have 3 challenge journeys that you can take. Number 1 is calm and relaxed. Number 2 is aligned and abundant. Number 3 is confident and sassy. So there's one for relaxation, there's one for manifestation, and there's one for confidence and self-belief. So depending on how you want to feel by the end of summer, there's going to be something to support you with that. And the challenge begins, week 1 officially begins on Monday. So if you're resonating with what I'm sharing today, it's a really good time for you to join us for the summer. Even if it's just for these 8 weeks, to just feel like you can reset, get some healthy habits in place, all that good stuff. Because the beauty of the sisterhood, it's cancel any time. You're not tied in. So you could join us just for the summer and feel amazing by the end of August. And with that said, let's dive in to the 5 things I have here that helped me get off the burnout cycle and recover from burnout for good. So that now at this point, I recognize when I'm overdoing it. I recognize when my cup is emptying, my tank of energy is getting lower, and now I can instantly spot it. I correct it, I reset, and then I'm back to 100%. I'm no longer almost like operating at 0. Like you would, some people, I could not be this person because I would be way too anxious. If you are driving and your car is on empty and the gas tank, the petrol sign is pinging at you, there's only so long you can do that for. And that with your car, when you're driving on empty, you're like, I'm pushing it a little bit, but I'm just going to push it for this journey, but I know eventually I'm going to have to stop and get some petrol. You are the same. And so if you're constantly running on empty and not refilling your tank, you're going to run into problems with burnout. And I'd much rather you see that as a warning sign from your body. Notice some of the things I've just mentioned before, where you're like, yeah, actually, I do feel overwhelmed most of the time. Or I do wish that I could, some of my clients will say, it's almost like they feel like they need this extreme reset, where they're like, I just wish I could go and live on an island by myself for a month. And so if you're feeling like that, if you're feeling like you need to escape from your life for a month to fully reset, then we need to do something about that. With that said, let's dive into step number 1 that I did. And like I said, these are the exact things that I did to recover from burnout. Number 1 is I removed the shit in my life that was burning me out, that was toxic, that was draining. And I've wrote here, declutter your life. And this is going to be hard for some people to hear, because you might be watching this and thinking, Kat, my job is burning me out. Like, what do you want me to do? Go and quit my job? What I'm going to say is, you've got to do what is within your power and what's within your control. But chances are, if you're someone who struggles with burnout, overworking or overcommitting, there's very likely multiple things that are going on right now that are leading you to feel burnt out. And it might be certain dynamics that are playing out within your workplace. It might be some sort of toxic, like people-pleasing, codependency vibe you've got going on with a colleague at work, or with your boss, or with a mentor, or with a client even, where you're constantly overgiving and overworking and burning yourself out to maintain that relationship or please that person or avoid something, there are going to be things within that environment that are within your control to shift. Even if, and let's face it, even if for some people that is, I've got to go. Like, I've got to leave. I've got to, end this friendship, or I've got to leave this job. I've got to find a different job. Because at the end of the day, and this might be an extreme opinion, but I believe that no one thing is worth your well-being. No job is worth your mental health or, burnout. No relationship in your life is worth you sacrificing everything and having zero left. No one thing in life is worth that. If something is causing you such stress and overwhelm that it's got to the point where you simply cannot function, and when you struggle with burnout, like I said, you're running on empty. It's like driving the car when the petrol tank is beeping, it's empty, you need to stop. It's not worth it, and that's gonna involve some hard decisions and some hard conversations, or a complete change in the dynamics that are playing out, where there's going to be a process of taking back power at your job, taking back, setting some new boundaries, like shifting a dynamic that you might have with a family member or with a friend, so that you can remove and cut some of those ties that you have with that person of overcommitting to things or doing more than you need to for them. There was a few situations that I had got involved in the last few years where I was maintaining a relationship that's simply not a romantic relationship. Me and Adam are great. I was maintaining a relationship with someone where it was not working out, and it was causing me more overwhelm, more stress than it was giving me. The energy exchange was off, and there's only so much you can do that, and that could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a boss, it could be a colleague, it could be an employee, it could be a client even, whatever it might be. There was a few things for me where I had to go, this is not worth my mental health, my peace, my energy. I've got to cut ties here. I've got to make a change here. And the best thing you can do for yourself, the biggest gift you can give to yourself with burnout, is think about what is actually causing the burnout in the first place. Because no matter how many times you go for a beautiful massage or a spa weekend or a holiday, that's a reset and it's an escape, and that's amazing, and we all want and need that. That isn't going to fix the root cause of the burnout if you don't do that as well. Especially if what I find, you're stuck in a cycle of it where you are overcommitting or overgiving, you're experiencing burnout, and then you're needing this I'll keep it Sophie so you can come back and watch it later. I hope you're well, by the way. You're experiencing burnout and you're needing this hard reset where, like I said, you're fantasizing, like my client has, about taking off for a month and seeing no one and doing nothing. It's because you feel like the only way, it's like an all or nothing thing, and then you go and do nothing, and you like dragging yourself to the airport to go on your summer holiday once a year because your job is so fucking draining, and then you're like, oh right, I'm reset, and then the cycle continues again. And if you're stuck in a cycle of burnout, something is causing the burnout in the first place, and that's the thing that needs to change. And whether that's changing how that operates, changing how it works, changing how you operate within that area of your life, setting new boundaries, shifting expectations, etc., hard conversations, whatever it might be, or it's cutting ties with that thing. And there's some potentially hard decisions there, but like I said, that for me was the number one thing. And let me tell you, you will fucking know. Your body is constantly speaking to you. And there were decisions I made, especially in my business last year, where I made a decision to end a working relationship, and there were a few different things, and my body instantly felt lighter, instantly felt like I could breathe, like I could exhale. And you'll know what it is, because you'll know that the feeling of it changing is going to feel like, thank God for that, thank God. I'm glad you can resonate, Carrie, and really hope this is going to be helpful for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this is part of that, is you've got to take radical responsibility for yourself. You've got to. There's no other option. And this isn't denying the very real aspects of external things that are influencing your burnout. There are obviously going to be external factors influencing your burnout. For example, I need to go to work, Kat, because I need to work full time because I have kids. Or I need to pay my mortgage, so I can't just quit this job. There are very real circumstances at play. What I'm talking about here is what is within your control, and what decisions have you made to enable that burnout cycle to continue. Oh, some people don't want to hear this. I can just feel the resistance, because I feel like I feel you, because I've fucking been there so many times where you're like, damn it, it's me. I'm the problem, it's me. It's like the Taylor Swift song where you have likely made, and I say this with love, like I say, because I've been there, you have likely made certain decisions, or tolerated certain things, or allowed certain things, or maintained a certain, and enabled something to maintain that cycle, to feed that cycle. Whether it be something as small as, using how you see, like, you might be like, oh, I'm such a generous person and I love giving to others. And so it could be these small little things where you're like, oh yeah, I'll say yes to that. Oh, I'll say yes to that. Oh, I'll try that. Oh, I can do that. You'll say yes to these small little things. But those small little things add up. And a question I asked a client recently with this is, who made that decision? Who said yes to taking on that extra project even when she was knackered? Who agreed to always be the one to do everything everything under the sun for that particular person, that particular family or friend? Who is the one who is continuing to do that? And she's like, fuck, it's me. It's me. I'm the one continuing to do that. And it's okay. And I need you to know that if that feels like I'm calling you out, I love you. You deserve to change this. And part of change is looking at what is within our control, because that awareness is you taking back your power. Because if I'm the one, let's use one of the examples that I've had in the past is not, ignoring red flags in a dynamic and not speaking up the second I see something, not setting a boundary initially and kind of letting things slide. So that's a behaviour that I had to take radical self-responsibility for. I had to look in the mirror and say, Kat, who did that? Who heard that person say that or do that or think this and did nothing? Just tolerated that, just allowed that to happen. It was me. And the reason this point is so important is when we understand that the ways, the behaviours, the patterns that we can fall into to enable burnout, to enable our own fucking suffering, let's face it, we know what we can shift and we know where the work can begin. We can't do that if we externalize the burnout. So I'm burnt out because I have like a massive family, or I'm burnt out because of my job, I'm burnt out because of XYZ. Like I said, there are external factors at play that it is what it is. Like I said, it is what it is that there are mouths to feed, or it is what it is that there are, babies, kids, family members to care for or to look after or to, that require responsibility on your part. But there's also the responsibility you can take for yourself. And for me, instead of outsourcing, expecting someone else to basically expecting someone to behave in a certain way, or expecting someone to go above and beyond in a way that like they weren't doing, just basically hoping and praying that they would, right? Hoping and praying or explaining away, it's okay, I can do it, I can sort it, I can XYZ. Just letting it slide. I need to take responsibility for that, because I've played a part in that, in my own burnout, in my own exhaustion, in my own people pleasing, in my own overworking, etc. etc. So, to recap those two so far, the first thing I did was remove the things that were causing the burnout in the first place, getting to the root causes of it. Removing it or changing it, right? So if you can't fully remove it, like you can't, for example, quit your job, are there ways in which you can shift and change the dynamics within your job to set boundaries, or to, shift your relationship with someone in order to begin chipping away at the root cause of the burnout? That's number one that I did. The second thing is taking radical responsibility for how I was enabling my own burnout and the patterns of people pleasing or of poor boundaries, or like, as sad as it is, like just having rose tinted glasses on and thinking that everything's fine and everyone's great and everyone's so respectful of your time and energy. And I think this is the balance, isn't it, of personal development between that masculine and feminine energy, where I can be, especially in a context of work or a relationship with someone, and I know some people will resonate with this, with say a friend who you might struggle with, you know, you're burning out because your friends are really draining, or there are certain family members who take a lot from you. As when we're very emotional and we have that emotional connection, we can come up against expecting the absolute best from everyone, and you know, having those rose tinted glasses on, when we also need that more masculine directive energy to understand and notice, like when we do need to be assertive, and when we do need to set a boundary, or we do need to advocate for ourselves and say, wait, whoa, like, this isn't right here, you know, this isn't working for me, this is too much, this isn't gonna work out, like, this isn't what I need in this dynamic, and so I'm gonna step away from this, or I'm gonna say no, or I'm gonna have a conversation about that. We need that balance, and so as difficult as it is to take that responsibility, it's what's needed. Because again, I'm not giving you fluffy, like, oh, go for a spa day as to, you know, to recover from your burnout, because that escape, as gorgeous as it is and as much as you fucking need and deserve it if you're going through this right now, is just like putting a plaster on a gaping wound. We're not getting that ongoing, lasting change. The third thing that I did to recover from burnout and break the burnout cycle is I was my own loving parent when it came to self-care, boundaries, recovery, all of the tangible, practical, day-to-day things that I needed to do. And part of that for me was two-pronged. Number one, how am I using numbing and coping behaviours to think that I'm resting and think that I'm recovering when I'm actually just numbing and momentarily getting a sense of escape from the exhaustion, or from the burnout, or from the hecticness, from the stress? How am I taking the stress and overwhelm and just numbing it for a moment, rather than actually giving my body, my mind, the true, deep self-care, rest, well-being that it needs to ultimately recover? So numbing and coping behaviours, and I'll get onto this in a sec, I needed to look at those, and then I needed to think about, what do I actually need instead? Like, how do I want to do things differently? What do I need in place to sustainably feel my best? So, and the reason I use, the reason I say being my own parent is, for me, self-care and boundaries and all of that feels very much like being a firm and loving parent to myself. Because a firm and loving parent wants the absolute best for their child. They love and support them. They want them to thrive. They understand that they need healthy habits. They need, if you take a toddler, needs a nap schedule, right? Needs time outside, needs healthy snacks throughout the day to allow them to thrive. The parent is creating that stable and consistent environment for that child to thrive. They are also, at the same time, not enabling behaviours that are not going to support the child as well. That's not to say that, you know, it's super strict and like it's all or nothing, and it's like really this really strict regime. But is a parent, for example, going to enable a behaviour where the child only eats Skittles for food as a food source? Like, and I'm laughing because I'm sure there are parents out there who have had to deal with that. I know my mum and dad dealt so much with my brother being so fussy. They said that there was like 2 weeks once where he would only eat baked beans, apparently. And I mean, good job it was baked beans, because at least there's some nutrients in, like, there's some nutritional stuff in there. But, you know, parents, when they're dealing with those things, they're not just enabling those behaviours, they're also setting up boundaries and really encouraging the child to do the things that they know are going to make them feel their best. And we kind of need to do that for ourselves as adults, because you get to do whatever the hell you want when you're an adult, which means that if life feels too much or feels exhausting or feels overwhelming during burnout, so many people resort to a numbing or a coping behaviour to put a plaster over that big wound instead of fully allowing themselves to heal and recover from it, using other things, you know, healthier habits that are going to serve them more. And so with burnout especially, because what's happening when you're burnt out is you're existing in survival mode. So you're existing with this nervous system response, that fight or flight response that is basically your body saying, I feel like I'm in danger, I'm constantly looking out for danger. And when you're constantly living in a state of perpetual stress and overwhelm, your body is never truly having that reset where naturally you should be able to come back down from that response. In, you know, the cliche example now is when you were out hunting and you were being chased by a predator, the fight or flight response kicks in, you can run away, but then your body and your environment, you know, let's say you've run to a hiding place, you have that moment where the adrenaline, the cortisol, all of that stuff that's like flooded your body is cycling through, and your body is coming back down to that central place of rest. But if your 9 to 5 is causing you to burn out, or if the family member that you are always, you know, is taking from you, or the toxic relationship you're in, or the friendship, or whatever it is, if those are the things that are burning you out, you are like this all week, and you're never getting quite down to that point where you are grounded and recovered, and from there, you know, you can thrive. Your body is in that cycle of constant, I'm triggered with stress, I'm triggered with stress, I'm triggered with stress. And the reason that's really important for the numbing and coping behaviours is those things, and I'll use some examples, those things are not supportive for your nervous system and body. They're just not. they're generally things that are actually exacerbating that feeling. For example, drinking, getting to a Friday and feeling like you need a glass of wine to wind down after work because you're so stressed during the week. You're using that behaviour to give you the external numbing behaviour gives you this feeling of like, right, I can finally relax. But we know that most of the things we use to do that are things that aren't fully allowing that deep, long-lasting rest and recovery. Because that, let's say that wine is, and this isn't me saying like I said with the parent thing, a parent is never like, no sweets ever, but a parent isn't like, sweets for every meal or sweets every single day or whatever. They're like, a little treat here and there, but also all of this stuff, the veg, the exercise, the whatever, that is crowding out and balancing the treats. But if you're not looking after yourself, so you've not got those stable foundations of self-care and well-being, and then on top of that you're using numbing behaviours, your nervous system is like fighting for its friggin' life, like fighting to recover. It could be a glass of wine, it could be needing to, and I feel like the people in my age bracket, certainly, like there's a huge epidemic, especially in the UK, with like, I'm gonna call it out, like party drugs, needing to go and have this massive blowout on a payday weekend or whatever, because it's that escape, right? It's like waiting for the summer holiday once a year. It's a version of that where it's like massive blowout and escape. It's getting into credit card debt from gambling or from overspending, shopping loads. There are so many things that can become a numbing or coping behaviour when you are struggling with burnout. And I always feel like, for me, when the line goes past it's a treat, and it's something that's a one-off, or it's something that feels like a conscious choice. For me, it's the feeling of reliability, like relying on it or needing it to feel a certain way, because you can't access that feeling without it. So feeling like you need a big blowout at the weekend, or you really like are craving that bottle of wine so that you can feel relaxed, because without that you would struggle to get there by yourself. That's the big difference for me. And for me, and I've been open about this in the past, my numbing behaviour was comfort eating. Was like, I don't want to use the term binging because I don't have binge eating disorder, and I know that's a very serious thing, but comfort eating and overeating as an unconscious tool to de-stress and to feel some form of fucking pleasure in my day. Because when you're dealing with a stressful situation in your business, or when you're burnt out, or when you're not looking after yourself, it's easier to flatline and numb with a numbing behaviour like a glass of wine, shopping, some, partying at the club with your friends at the weekend, whatever it is. It's easier to do that than it is to address the things that I shared before of like what has actually led to this. And then what are the things that might feel harder to do in the moment but are actually going to help me recover in a deeper and more sustainable way? And I say this because I know if you are struggling with burnout, probably the last thing you want to do on a Friday night is like go for a walk or do some journaling and journal on what you're stressed about, or do a breathwork class, or do some EFT, or any number of things that are really gonna deeply support you to recover. But it reminds me of this thing that I say, and you've probably heard it before from other people too. Choose your hard. Like, choose your hard, because it feels hard on a Friday night when you're in the thick of burnout to not just have a bottle of wine and try to forget about it, but to go to a coaching session or do a breathwork class or go to yoga or do something that's going to really deeply nourish and nurture you and allow your nervous system to be recovering. It feels hard to do that, but it's also really fucking hard to be living on the edge of burnout constantly and feel like you're trapped in that cycle. And so if both things are hard, you've just got to choose which version of hard you want to do. Because I would rather choose the thing that might feel hard in the moment but is going to feel a lot more easeful later on when I'm no longer suffering with burnout, than choose the easy option of numbing out when later on it's going to feel even harder to continue being in that cycle. And like I said, this is not a black and white thing where it's like, if you're burnt out, you've got to be this, like high and mighty yogi who just drinks green juice and eats salads and goes to yoga every day and never touches a drop of alcohol or drugs or like whatever you enjoy doing in your spare time. No, we're not talking about that at all. I'm talking about temporarily, even if it's say a month or 3 months, can you remove some of the things that you know aren't the best for you and amplify up the things that are going to really truly nourish and nurture you. So the exact things I've done to recover from burnout: remove the things that were causing the burnout, had the difficult conversations, made the difficult decisions. Second thing was then take lessons and responsibility for my part in enabling my own burnout and enabling those cycles and those behaviours. Third thing was to be my own loving parent when it came to self-care, removing the numbing and coping behaviours that I was relying on. For me it was comfort eating, for you it might be something else, and upping and increasing the healthy habits that have actually helped me fully recover and will long-term sustainably help you. And just to give you some examples, just in case someone's wondering how that looked for me, the gym, especially since I would say 2023 is the most consistent I've been with the gym since like lockdown, when everyone was at home and had all the time in the world and was just working out every day. So from January I've been to the gym like 3 to 4 times a week. That's been an amazing thing. Little things throughout the day where if I have a busier schedule, I'll adjust my morning routine or I'll adjust my weekend. I won't pack my weekends with plans. I'll make sure I have weekends free. I have stripped back the way that I work in my business, so I'm focusing on the things that are actually moving me forward and not just packing my schedule with tons of things. Those are a few examples that have worked for me, as well as, like, I would say reducing alcohol, definitely, especially whilst I was really recovering from burnout, and booking regular sessions with my own coaches and healers. You know, at least once a month, having something in where I am receiving, I am being nurtured, I am having space held for me, I am able to process whatever's coming up. Those things for me have been the most sustainable shifts I've made that have really helped. The fourth thing, and there are 2 things left, the fourth thing is design your new way of life, which is really fun when you think about it. And I'll keep this one short and sweet. Design your new way of life. Like, I just gave some examples there where I'm like, right, what hasn't been working for me in my business? What overwhelms me when it comes to social stuff? Having a packed schedule, or like having something on every weekend. Once you recognise the things that you're doing, the things that are happening that aren't working for you, and you're taking the steps to change that, design what success looks like for you. Design what productivity is going to look like for you now. Redefine your own version of successful, productive, etc., etc. Because if you want to make lasting change in your life, the way to do that is to be intentional about what that even means for you. Like, if the way you've been running your business, or the way you've been operating in your family, you know, as the person who's always doing everything for everyone, or whatever it might be, if that hasn't been working, what does the vision look like then for something different? Is there a vision of calling in people who have that more balanced exchange with you and are, you know, pouring into you as you're pouring into them? What does that look like? If burnout has come from work, what does your career look like on the other side of recovering from burnout? What does your work schedule look like? What are your boundaries within work? What will you no longer tolerate? Really design, and this is such a fun exercise you can do, design what that's going to look like for you and what you want that to look like. And this goes hand in hand with the very first point, if you are making changes, because if your burnout has led you down a path to discover, oh shit, I need to, like, change career even, you know, as an extreme example, you get to now look at what could be different and what is going to be different and what that means for you and why it matters. So that's a fun exercise and something that I have definitely found helpful in that with, say, running my business. How do I want to run my business? What do I stand for? And what does that look like practically in how I work, in when I work? And I think for me, especially, like, and this applies as well if you're, for anyone, because you are inspiring the people around you. You are an example of what it means to put yourself first, to do this work, to heal, to live your best life, to manifest your dreams. Like, you are inspiring people around you. And especially, you know, I think women especially do that in a really special way. And for me, like, I had to get excited again about really understanding the, really reconnecting with the change that I'm making in the world by the very fact that I do this work. Like, not just as a coach, but I'm I'm invested in my personal development, my healing, manifestation, and all of this, that does not look like burnout and overworking and overgiving. It just doesn't. And that, for me, really considering who's watching me, who's looking up to me. And for you, it might be the younger women in your family. Like, they are looking up to you and they are watching and seeing how you put yourself first, how you face challenges, how you set boundaries. And that's really powerful to think about when you are consciously designing the life that you want to live for yourself. And the last point is ask for help. Ask for help from multiple people. Because if you can shift those causes of the burnout once and for all, you're going to struggle to ever get back to that low point. And that might be, what ongoing help do I need at home with my partner or with my family that's going to allow me to thrive? And chances are it's like the most simple of things, like knowing who's cooking dinner what night, so that on the nights where you're prioritizing that yoga class, you're going to go. Maybe it's time to start getting a cleaner. Maybe it's time to start getting HelloFresh. Maybe it's time to set some, boundaries with family and be like, everyone's going to be helping out. Maybe it's time to, ask for help from a friend or another family member, where maybe there's something that you give to them, but there's also ways in which they could help you, but you never asked them for help. But now you can. But now you can think about what feels like that equal exchange, what feels good there. And if you can heal the root causes of that burnout, you are going to go so much further than the quick fixes of the week off or the spa day or whatever it might be. And that might look like working with a coach. It might be getting inside the sisterhood. It might be getting into my one-to-one program. It might be any of those things. Really sustainable, long-lasting change with burnout is going to come when you're receiving more help, especially if you're someone who has struggled along the way to receive anything at all from anyone, and you're always giving. Because even the act of asking and receiving help via your partner helping you with something, or via working together in coaching, that is going to be so healing for you and your burnout in and of itself. So I just want to recap here, as I know this is a long live. I really hope it's been helpful. I need to save this as a podcast episode too. Number 1, and these are the exact things I did to recover from burnout. Number 1, I removed the shit that was burning me out in the first place. I removed it, I decluttered my life. So that's the number 1 thing you need to do. What is actually causing the burnout, and how can you change that? And if it's outside of your control to fully change that, how can you shift the dynamics in which it's playing out? Number 2, I took radical responsibility for my own behaviours that were enabling the burnout in the first place. So within those dynamics, how was I enabling a path to be led down that was ultimately causing the burnout to keep going and keep myself stuck in that cycle where I was overworking or overgiving or people pleasing or ignoring red flags. So having that awareness of and taking radical self-responsibility for how I was enabling my own burnout. That was step number 2, because from there you can make a change. Number 3 was being my own loving parent, removing the numbing and coping behaviours that I was using. With me it was comfort eating, for you it might be something else, that was flatlining my stress and numbing it and allowing me to just switch off for a minute, but not actually giving you that deep rest and restoration and healing that you need with the burnout. So removing the numbing behaviours, but then upping and adding in the healthy behaviours that you need in order to truly be able to nourish, nurture and reset your nervous system, so you're not constantly living in that fight or flight cycle. Next up is designing your new way of life. So as you recover from burnout, what is your life going to look like? What does your new career need to look like? Or how you operate in friendships, or how you will, look after extended family members. The things that you're changing, how is that going to look in the new way of life that you are living? Intentionally and consciously creating that. And the last thing is ask for help. Ask for help in any way you know you need it. Ask for help from your partner, reach out to a coach, ask for help with your health and well-being if you need help with that. Ask for help from family members. Do what you need to do to begin receiving the support that you need, because that is not only healing within and of itself. If you are someone who gives and never asks for anything in return, or you overwork, or you people please, doing that is healing in and of itself, but it's also going to allow you to create that lasting, sustainable change that you need to avoid and prevent burnout in the future. So I did not expect this training to be a full hour, but here we go. Clearly it needed to be. I really hope this was helpful. I think it's one to maybe rewatch, to go back through, make some notes, really consider what your main takeaways are and what you are changing and actioning off the back of this live. I would love to hear what those things are, what your biggest takeaways are. If you want to comment on the replay on Instagram, or DM me directly if you would prefer to chat privately. And just to remind you again, I know I shared at the beginning, 2 ways we can work together right now. The Sisterhood doors close on Monday night, and the Sisterhood Summer Challenge starts on the 3rd of July, next Monday too. So that's an amazing way to get into the community, and there's a track in there called Calm and Relaxed in the Summer Challenge. So you're going to have a weekly ritual to help you feel calm and relaxed. Amazing if you're struggling with burnout right now. So that's number 1, my membership community, which is open for new members until end of day, Monday the 3rd of July. And the second thing is I am taking on new one-to-one clients. If you are interested in my high-level private one-to-one coaching, please reach out via DM or head to the link in my bio to get an application, find out more info, what's included, all of that good stuff. This, like, the one-to-one is for the woman who is like seriously ready to transform her life. However, I know many people aren't quite there yet, so there's something for everyone. You've got the Sisterhood if you are really getting started and wanting to dive into personal development every month with a supportive community. And if you are ready to go deep with me, to go deep on your healing journey, your mindset, any and all things that you are struggling with right now, including burnout, we will be like changing your friggin' life in the next 3 to 6 months. So those are the 2 ways we can work together right now. I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions, if you want to let me know this live resonated with you. I'm always down for a chit chat in the DMs, so I will speak to you there, and have an amazing weekend, whatever you're up to.